Hello, welcome to episode 58 of Working Towards Our Purpose. Thank you for being here. In today's episode, we are going to talk about you. Are you the one that is keeping yourself stuck? So before we get into today's topic, we're going to do our normal check-in that we always do before we start our episode. So check in with yourself, see how you're feeling today. For me, I had a really good start to my week. I had the first 2 days were awesome. Felt really productive, felt really in alignment. Felt grateful. And then yesterday had sort of a not great day, but a good learning lesson of a day. That kind of spawned the topic for this episode. I realize I use that word a lot, spawned. I'm not even sure if I'm using that right. Generated the idea for this episode. So this morning also feeling a little all over the place. So I'm going to try to take it a little bit slower and collect my thoughts in this episode to make sure that I'm saying everything that I want to. Getting into today's episode, I want to talk about, are you the one that is keeping yourself stuck? I think a lot of people can sort of resonate with being your own worst enemy or, limiting yourself. So in today's episode, I want to talk about 4 questions that you can sort of ask yourself to help you realize where you're being stuck and where you're keeping yourself stuck. Because I think a lot of times it's sort of subconscious and you don't really realize it. And the awareness is what's helpful in being able to sort of change that and to not be stuck anymore. Anyways, yesterday I had a laundry list of things to do, and I guess, I don't know, for whatever reason, I was just very not focused. I kept getting distracted. I kept getting stuck on my phone, which usually makes me feel bad about myself. I don't know, felt like I wasn't performing very well, especially in contrast to the previous 2 days. So I ended up just not really realizing, but I was just belittling myself all day, subconsciously, making myself feel bad because I wasn't being as productive or focused or whatever you want to call it. And I got towards the end of the day, and for some reason it felt like I didn't get anything accomplished. But then I looked at my list of things that I needed to get done, and more than 80% of it was completed. And I was so confused in that moment, because I was wow, that's weird, because how I'm feeling feels like I didn't do anything all day long and I got nothing done. But I really ended up getting most of the things done that I needed to. So that made me question well, why do I feel so bad then? And that kind of triggered the looking inward and being well, I think I was talking bad to myself all day long in my head, making myself feel bad. That I didn't have a good day. And it was just sort of interesting. The awareness of that was pretty interesting. So it kind of just gave me the idea for this episode about being stuck and trying to, maybe get more awareness about being stuck so you can then not fall into those habits again. I have 4 sort of questions that you can ask yourself, and we're going to kind of run through them. And then I'm going to pepper in stories from throughout my week, because I feel like this week has been, very insightful in showing me ways of myself that I no longer want to see myself as, showing me older versions of myself that I maybe older habits, older ways of beings that I'm trying to break and don't want to be, associated with as much anymore. So I think that's another part of this episode. I think I've been challenged this week to sort of see these traits and having a hard time coming up with words, but traits or habits are kind of the only things that come to mind right now. But traits, habits, ways of being that no longer fit me, that no longer suit me, and most importantly, no longer serve me. So lots of learning lessons this week. But so the first question, kind of pulling it in a little bit. The first question that you can ask yourself to see if you're the one that's keeping yourself stuck is trying to figure out like what are the stories that you're telling yourself. And I think a lot of times we don't realize the stories that we tell ourselves. Maybe this shouldn't be the first question, but we're going into it. So what are the stories that you're telling yourself? And I think if I think about me, an example that came up this week, somebody came over my place, and for the first time, they'd never been here before, sort of a family member associated, not important, but they came in and they saw all my guitars and they were like, whoa, I didn't realize that like you played guitar that much. I didn't know that like you were into it that much. And I was kind of feeling quiet about it. Like I didn't say like, oh yeah, I do this and this and this. I was just like, yeah, I love music, always have. And then they immediately sort of like went over to my guitars and like, I don't know if they picked one up or if I handed one to them, but they just started like playing right in front of me. And to me, that was like, whoa, I would never do that. Why was, and not in like a judging way, but just like I don't know, like I thought, I guess really quickly had thought of like, I would never do that. Sort of judging myself as like, well, why wouldn't I do that? Like, I do love playing guitar. I do feel like I'm a competent guitar player. Why would it be such a crazy thing to like play a guitar if somebody's got a bunch there? So it kind of like questioned myself, like, well, why am I always like so reserved with that? Why am I so sort of shy of saying that I play music or that I make music? And then, after some conversation, this person said something about like having some music on Bandcamp, and I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, nice. And like, did not say like, I've been releasing a single every month this year and I have like albums out. Nothing. Like, didn't say anything. And I don't know, it's just strange. Like I saw myself acting like this and I was like, why didn't I say anything? Like, why am I so quiet about it? So that was like one experience this week that like sort of challenged my way of being. It's like, why do I act like that? I don't necessarily like that. I don't like the fact that I'm not like proud of the things that I do, and I don't outwardly talk about the things that I do. So yeah, that was one sort of thing. And, I think it's these stories that we tell ourselves. Like for me, I think I've told myself for a long time that like, I'm not a musician. I just can kind of play guitar. Like I'm not really a musician, but I mean, what is a musician if it's not somebody who's making music? And that is something that I do. So, I mean, even as I'm like thinking about it now, I'm still struggling with the idea of like identifying with the word musician or like the term musician, because it was like an older story that I told myself. Maybe in high school, when I first started learning, I didn't maybe feel like I knew guitar enough to say that like I was a musician. But in my mind, here I am now at 33, still sort of resonating with this old story that is no longer true. I am a musician. I do know how to play music. I am proud of that. Why do I still identify with the story of I'm not a musician? So yeah, that was a really challenging one for me, and still processing it, still kind of working through it and seeing how I can change that. But yeah, I think that kind of brings me to the next question that you can ask yourself to see if you're the one that's keeping yourself stuck, or see where you are, is how are you talking about yourself? And that noticing that is like the hardest part. And I think that my experience yesterday of having like a bad day, and at the end of it sort of recapping my day and looking at how the day went and how I felt, and it being so mismatched, I think that's like a really good insight of being able to see where these sort of stories don't line up, and like where you could be talking about yourself negatively, right? And I think that's like just really for me, it's just like it's so hard to be aware that you're talking to yourself in a negative way. And because a lot of it is like, it's not direct thinking. It's just like, seeing something, having a thought about it so quickly, and then having a feeling about it so quickly that you don't even realize that you're having a thought. So, as I was getting distracted yesterday, like on my phone, doom scrolling, whatever, checking stuff that doesn't matter, I'm like just subconsciously telling myself, like, you're not focused, you're not getting this thing done, you're not good enough. Why aren't you, being productive? Why are you wasting all this time? And, at the end of the day, I felt like so exhausted because I was like doing that to myself all day long. And it just completely zaps your energy, talking to yourself in a negative way. And yeah, I think the only reason I'm trying to think of like why I sort of recapped my day at the end of the day and like looked to see physically what I got done. And I think it was because I was going to see some friends for birthday and I wanted to not be in a bad mood. And I had gotten myself into a bad mood and I was, I don't know. Just kind of thinking about like how I could maybe get myself in a better mood. But, I think the way that we talk to ourselves is so important because in reality, one thing can be happening, but in your head, a total different thing can be happening. So in reality, my day yesterday wasn't all that bad. I got most of what I need to get done accomplished. I, didn't do nothing. I got some things done, and in my head, I was like a total failure. I didn't do anything I wanted to do. I was distracted, didn't have enough discipline, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, it was interesting how you can see those things not line up. And yeah, so that kind of brings me to my third question that you can ask yourself to identify if you're keeping yourself stuck and where you can see yourself being stuck and keeping yourself stuck. And this one is, are you being violent towards yourself? And this kind of goes in with the second question and kind of goes in with the first question even. I'm having a hard time identifying the different questions myself, but hopefully you're following me here. And yeah, are you being violent towards yourself? And what do I mean by violence? I just finished the Book of Dharma, which I wrote a review for on my Substack if you're interested. I'll put the link in the show notes, but nonviolence is one of the 4 Dharma principles. There's 4 principles of Dharma. It's like a code of living. And one of them is nonviolence. And of course it means like, don't kill each other and don't be violent towards somebody else. And that one's sort of easy to understand. But I read this line that said something like, oh man, I should have had the quote prepared, but it was something like, if you are talking to yourself in like a degrading or a mean way, that this is an act of violence against yourself. And I read that and I was like, whoa, I never thought of it like that. I know that it's not, good to talk bad about yourself, but I never saw it as like this act of violence. And thinking of it in that way sort of helps to like weight the significance of it, because it is truly significant the way that you talk about yourself in your head. And it was such a good example for my day yesterday. It was like I didn't even have that bad of a day, but I made myself suffer all day long because of the way that I was talking to myself, and I wasn't being careful with sort of stopping the negative cycle. And yeah, I don't know. I really liked the way that it put so much importance on that because yeah, I mean, the way that you think about yourself is kind of everything. It's how you see the world. It's how you perceive the world. It's how you feel about yourself. And if you can really sort of stop these acts of violence against yourself in your head, how much happier could we be? How much unstuck could we be? We can allow ourselves to move forward and to get past so many different things. So, of course, that's something that we're always going to have to work on is how we talk to ourselves. And yeah, I think it's going to be a practice. And if it's, ingrained in our head to treat ourselves like this, if we've been doing it for 30 so years or 20 years, whatever, 15 years, it's going to take a long time to try to change that habit, but it's possible. You can work at it, and you can start to change the way that you talk to yourself and perceive yourself. So yeah, that one was really, really important for me, that quote in that book of Dharma. And then that kind of brings me to the fourth question, which is, how do you want to be? And what do you want to be? Like how do you want to get past your being stuck, get past the old versions of yourself? How do you want to grow? How do you want to think about that? So for me, I think another story, from this week, I saw, some friends last night, and some unfamiliar faces, some new faces, some people I'm not as comfortable with, in a celebration of a birthday of a close friend. And I was already, this was yesterday for me, so I was already not in a good mood from kind of berating myself and beating myself up all day. And I didn't feel very social. I didn't feel like I wanted to show up, because I didn't feel good, and I felt like I didn't have any energy left. But I wanted to go because it is a dear friend, and I did. And the whole time, I don't know, I was sort of noticing, as more and more people showed up, me getting more uncomfortable. And it sort of reminded me of when I was younger and socializing. It sort of like triggered me back into like feeling like a kid in certain moments. Like I was kind of like floating in and out of it. And so I'm trying to describe it, because it's like very difficult to describe, I feel like. But for me, like being in a group of people who are like, we're all talking to each other. It was sort of like a group setting. I do very well with like one-on-one, but like when there's more people, I get like quieter. I make myself feel smaller. I don't want to talk. So I kind of felt like that. I was seeing people like be, I don't know, what's the word? I was seeing people be sort of outgoing, and I guess when I witness that, I think to myself like, oh, that's not me. I'm not very outgoing. So I get like quieter, I get smaller. I can start to belittle myself again and be like, you should be this, you should be that. And one word that comes to mind that I read in the Celestine Prophecy, the book, The Celestine Prophecy, is the word aloof. And aloof sort of means like, you don't divulge information. You're kind of quiet, avoidant. And I felt very much that last night. And it was strange, because I felt like I've grown past that, especially with some of the people that were there. But yeah, I felt myself like not talking about anything. And somebody was saying something that like, I could have said something too. I could have added to the conversation, but I didn't. And I sort of felt like I couldn't. And yeah, it just brought me back to like being in those sorts of environments as a kid, being in school, being, at recess, in a field trip, someplace where like there wasn't an expectation of you to like be a certain way, where you can have some freedom to like express yourself. I always would be like nervous, and I'd be like, oh man, I don't want to like talk about myself at all. And so I'm kind of going down this rabbit hole now, but what I'm trying to say is that like, how do I want to be? I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be aloof. I don't want to not contribute and participate and have conversations. There was people at this birthday party celebration last night that were asking great questions. They were, asking like deep questions. And like, I love that. I love not like talking about surface level stuff. I love getting straight to deep conversations and what are you passionate about, stuff like that. And like, I noticed people were doing that and I wasn't participating. And I was like, why am I not doing this? This is something that I enjoy. This is something that I like. These people are very kind, all of them. Why are you sort of like hiding yourself, like turtling and reclusive, whatever you want to say, like I felt like I was hiding myself and I felt like I just wanted to leave, but I kind of just sat in it and tried to like notice how I felt and to notice like why I felt like that and to try to envision like how I wanted to feel. And, now that I'm talking about it, I'm thinking to myself, like, we can't be perfect. Obviously, I don't want to say obviously, but we can't be perfect. I can't be perfect in every situation. So it's okay that I didn't feel like talking and didn't feel like, interacting and I showed up anyways because it was important to me to be there. And yeah, I don't know. That thought just kind of came to my mind as I'm speaking it aloud. But yeah, I think, just another example of me being hard on myself. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that. I've talked to a lot of people who are hard on themselves. I've seen a lot of people who are hard on themselves. And, I think being hard on yourself is eventually like kind of what keeps you stuck in things. So yeah. So those are my 4 questions. I see that we're kind of getting on close on time here. That felt very all over the place. I hope it was helpful. I hope it made sense. But really what I wanted to talk about was how we can be the ones who limit ourselves and to keep ourselves stuck in these stories that we tell ourselves and the things that we think we can and can't do, ways of showing up in the world. So these are 4 questions that maybe you can ask yourself to identify where you're keeping yourself stuck and where you can maybe try to grow areas that you can grow. So I'll repeat the 4 questions again because I don't even know if they came out very great. But first one was, what stories are you telling yourself? The second question is, how are you talking to yourself? The third question is, are you being violent towards yourself? Are you sort of belittling and berating yourself in your head? And then the fourth one is, how do you want to be? How do you want to show up in the world? So yeah, thanks for bearing with me in this episode. I definitely felt not as fluent and articulate as I wanted to be, but hey, we can't be perfect every day. So hopefully this was helpful. And quick reminder, I do have a feedback form up on my website for feedback on this podcast. If you have any questions or if you have any things that you want to say about it, if you resonated with anything, please let me know. I will get back to you. And you can also go to workingtowardsourpurpose.com to find some Working Towards Our Purpose merch. And yeah, that's all I got for you today. Thank you for listening as always, and I will see you on the next episode.